Joining us today on the Georgia Vote is former Georgia Governor Nathan Deal. Governor, thanks for coming with us.
Glad to be with you. Thank you.
So let's get right into this. You have a new book. Tell us about it.
Well, it's called Veto the Governor's Cat. And this is a true story in that I had two cats that were taken from the barn in North Hall County where they were born and brought to the mansion because we were having trouble with chipmunks eating all the berries and the fruits and the vegetables in the garden. And so they grew up in the governor's mansion. And then when my term was up, they were brought up to the river where we live up in Habersham County. And so this is a story of those two cats, Bill and Vito, who are brothers, and their experiences. So it is partially fact, but it's also partially fiction. My editors decided that I needed to tell them a little bit more about the adventures that these two cats had. So I said, in other words, you want me to move from fact into my imagination? And they said yes. So that was the fun part. But it's a book that is a little different than a lot of children's books.
How so?
Well, I have a saying that's on the foyer table of my house, and it says, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And that's an Aristotle quote. So my purpose was to educate the mind, let children learn to read, pronounce words, and understand how to make a book come to life, but also to educate their heart. And so that's where that's where these characters come in. And each of the characters have a message that they're trying to teach Vito, and by osmosis, I suppose, if you read the book, is teaching children the same. To be nice, to be kind, to be patient, to be able to get along with others that don't look like you and don't do the same things that you do, but you can still be friends. So those are messages that are, I think, very important today.
Your wife, Georgia's former First Lady, Sandra Deal,
Yes.
Literacy was at the heart of her service to the state. I can see you thinking about her as you talk about this book. What does this book mean to you and to her legacy?
Well, this book is actually a tribute to her, and it is a book that she requested that I write. She had read to over 1,000 individual classrooms as First Lady. We estimate she probably read to 250,000 Georgia students a book in their classrooms. So after we left office, she was still getting requests to come read here and there and yonder. She said, I need you to write me a children's book. And I promised her I would, but I never got around to it. And then she got the diagnosis of brain cancer. And I realized I needed to get busy. So I did. I wrote it in its original form, read it to her. She liked it. She gave me the thumbs up. So she was the inspiration.
When you see this book in your hand here, do you feel that connection to her?
Absolutely. I do. I do. I think she would like it. I hope she would.
And the students she read to, you think
Yes.
they'd like it too?
I hope so.
What can people who don't know Sandra Deal, who don't know you, what can they learn from your relationship?
Well, we were married for over 56 years. We met on a blind date, and so we had a lot of history. We raised 4 children, and we are very proud of all of them. We were just the children of school teachers. Her parents were both school teachers, as were mine. So education was important to us from the very beginning. And this book, I think, carries forward that idea that it's important to impart literacy. I think literacy is really one of those foundational stones of civilization, if you think about it. The ability to communicate and the ability to record what has happened as your life passes by. But there are some interesting characters in this book. Would you like to be introduced to one of them?
Please, yes.
Well, one of the most interesting one of them is, and I'll let him introduce himself. Hello, my name is Percival. You may call me Percy. And Bill says, what are you? An actor, of course, but also a possum, but more correctly, an opossum. But no one uses the proper King's English anymore. Now here's a character. If you were going to pick out an attractive animal, a possum would not fit in that category. But I think it imparts to children the fact that you don't have to be handsome, you don't have to be beautiful, but if you've got a personality and there's something inside of you, you will be memorable. And Percival is definitely memorable. But he also allows us to introduce the concept of death, and that's one of the most difficult things for children to understand. As we all know, as adults, most of us know what it means to play possum. And Percival does that. He pretends he's dead when a big limb crashes in the forest. And Vito and Bill don't know what the word death means. And so Oliver, the wise old owl who gives them advice, he says, death is when life stops. Beyond that, I do not know. But Bill does die. Now you can't say that in a children's book, so Bill, who always liked to sun himself, is following the sunset. So he'll always be warm and he'll always have beautiful skies. So those are the kinds of things that hopefully children can deal with. Just moving, that's a difficult thing for many children. And Bill and Vito, they had a hard time moving too. They ran, as soon as they got out of the crate, out of the car coming from the mansion, they ran up in the woods and wouldn't come out. And so that's when my publishers, I just wrote it factually. They said, well, what did they do in the woods that night? And I said, I have no way of knowing that. They said, well, your readers would like to know. So I used my imagination to create these characters that they meet.
It seems like at the heart of this book and at the heart of this project is connection to each other, to our families, and to ourselves.
Yes.
When you look at the state of Georgia politics now, do you think we're living up to those ideals?
Well, let me say this. Vito and Bill are nonpartisan. They have not signed up to any allegiance to any political party. But I do think that politics has changed in Georgia. I was first elected to public office in the 1980 elections, and I was elected to the state Senate. I served there for 12 years. I rose through the ranks to be the president pro tem my last 2 years in office.
And you were initially a Democrat, an elected Democrat.
I was a Democrat all of those years, and as were most of the people in the state legislature. I was in the 56-member state Senate. Out of the 56, only 5 were Republican at that time. That changed drastically, and of course over the last few years Republicans have dominated both the House and the Senate at the state level. But yes, politics has changed a lot. I left the state Senate as a Democrat. I was elected in the 1992 election as a Democrat to Congress. I was reelected in 1994 as a Democrat, and that was the year of the Republican Revolution. That was the year of the contract with America.
With Newt Gingrich, a fellow Georgian.
Became the Speaker of the House, the first time in 40 years that Republicans had had control of the U.S. House of Representatives. So I've lived through a lot of transitions. I switched parties in 1995, and I have been a Republican from that point forward.
You left elected office in 2019.
Right.
That was only 5 years ago.
Yes.
How much has national politics changed in those 5 years?
Dramatically. It has changed dramatically.
For the better?
Not necessarily. I don't like the controversy and the name calling and the things that don't deal with issues that really should matter to people. I realize we live in a different time where it's very difficult to communicate with people. It is very expensive in a political campaign to try to communicate your message to people. But it seems to me that you would better use that expensive time to talk about issues and where you stand on issues so that people can really know what to expect if they elect you to public office. So it has changed, but some things remain the same. And if you look back in our history, some of the early years when political parties were beginning to form back in the 1800s, when Washington was very much opposed to political parties, as was John Adams. But Thomas Jefferson came along and he beat John Adams as he was running for re-election in the election of 1800. and political parties at that time became very important. Now they've changed their names from one to the other, but the difference of political parties has been a long time in our history.
When you look ahead to the next class of Georgia politicians who may be vying for your former job,
Right.
Your former opponent, Jason Carter, is rumored to be eyeing a run for the governor's mansion. Attorney General Chris Carr, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, all rumored to be thinking about jumping into this race.
All of whom are my friends.
What do you think of the next crop of Georgia politicians?
Well, those are good contestants there, and they know what they're talking about when they talk about things, and hopefully they will stick to the issues. And but I am encouraged. I'm not one of those that says all is lost, because I don't think that's the case. I think the important thing, though, is that all of us look to the ones who are going to read my book as young children and try to cultivate, first of all, their understanding of the history of our nation and how important that history is in forming the things that keep our freedom in place. So I'm encouraged. I think we all should be encouraged. We have some very fine young people coming along. It's our responsibility to keep them on the right track.
Listening to you talk about your book put something in my mind here I want to put to you. You said all of the candidates, potential candidates I just floated, are your friends. You called
Yes.
them your friends. Jason Carter was your political opponent.
He's still my friend.
He's a Democrat.
Yes.
There are some people who think it's mighty hard for an elected Republican to be friends with a Democrat now. Not for you.
Not for me. You know, you have to look beyond party labels. You have to look at the person. And that's sometimes what you don't get to do in a political campaigns, and that's unfortunate. I think we really need to know who the people are behind the names and behind the labels, because that's what's going to determine how they govern, is who they are, what they believe in their heart, what they stand for. Now, the political process is one of those things that makes it difficult to get that message through, because there's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter. So I'm just hopeful that we can keep our republic. I was asked, by the way, to teach a class, and it was done in a program that Brenau University in Gainesville has. It's for senior adults. It's a non-credit course. It's called the Bully Program, Brenau University Learning and Leisure and Learning. And I was asked to teach a class. I said, well, what do you want to teach it on? And they said, anything you want to. Well, I had just finished reading the biography of Benjamin Franklin. And you may recall that the last words that he spoke as they were coming out of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, a lady asked him, Dr. Franklin, what have you given us? And he responds, a republic if you can keep it. So I got to thinking, well, a good course would be the keeping of the republic. And as we learned together during that course, we don't really have a republic anymore. We have a democracy. The word democracy to our founding fathers meant mob rule. And we have to be very careful that as we have transitioned from a republic into a democracy, that we do not let that democracy degenerate into mob rule. And of course, they were looking at the French Revolution, which was considered to be a democratic movement at that time. As you know, it was very bloody and not something that any country would ever want to use as a model. So we've got a good history. I think children need to learn and be taught that history.
You signed an open letter a few weeks ago, the AJC reported, criticizing some remarks by former President Trump about Georgia's state elections board. Do you worry about the upcoming election?
Well, I'm a part of a group. It's a bipartisan group, the Defense of Democracy Foundation. And it was specifically designed to be bipartisan. Roy Barnes, Shirley Franklin are the two Democrats. Myself and Saxby Chambliss, former United States Senator, Republican, we are the four that constitute that group. Our main focus is to try to make sure that the confidence in our election process is maintained. And that's something that sometimes a lot of the chatter is designed to unsettle the public, to give them no confidence in the electoral process. And if we don't maintain confidence in our election system, apathy sets in, excuses for not voting prevail, and that's very, very detrimental to any form of government, especially a democracy.
But your level of worry, just to be clear, is just, and I don't mean to press, and that's not what this is, but you talk about Ben Franklin, and it's a republic if we can keep it, and you taught this course on preserving a republic and living up to the ideals to preserve a democracy. You're involved in this bipartisan group. Are you concerned, or are you confident that the republic, the democracy, will continue?
Well, I have a degree of concern, and I think everybody should. But concern hopefully will take actions that will make sure that the bad results of a democracy that our founding fathers would have not liked to have had happen doesn't happen. And so we all have a responsibility in that regard. If we're going to be a republic that is transitioned into a democracy, then we need to make sure that that democracy does not become mob rule.
Are you prepared to say who you will be supporting in the 2024 election for president?
Well, I'm a Republican, and I think I'll leave it at that. My wife was interviewed by a reporter as he traveled with her at one time, and it had been just past the election, and he said, well, now, who did you vote for president? She said, I'm not going to tell you. He said, well, why won't you tell me? She said, it's a secret ballot, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So she gave a pretty good answer.
She was a smart woman.
She was.
Let's end here, sort of where we started, talking about former First Lady.
Yes.
Talking about this book. When you think about her and her life and all the time she spent reading to Georgia's school children,
Right.
Do you feel in some way full circle connected to her through this book?
I do, because I'm going to try to replicate what she did. Now, I can't go to every county and every school district and 1,000 classrooms like she did to read to children, but I am going to go on a book tour, promoting the book and reading to children every opportunity that I have, and encouraging adults who buy the book to read to children as well. I caution them that in order to make this book real, they need to practice their English dialect so that Percival will become his full personality. And also some other characters in the book. They all have their voices, including Grumpy the groundhog, who's always grumpy. Those are the kind of things that make a book more than just something on words on a page. And this book's got some characters in it. If people who read it will make those characters come to life.
If Sandra Deal could see what you're doing right now, what do you think she'd say?
I think she'd like it. She'd say, Nathan, behave. Don't get so exaggerated about some of these characters, but I think she'd like it.
Governor Nathan Deal, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Good to be with you.